Hello and good afternoon, Xbox Nation. Welcome to this week's new episode of the Xbox Lunch Break Special. I'm your host, Mr. BoomStick XL, and ladies and gentlemen, what a weekend the Xbox community has had. I mean, my goodness. We've seen Xbox drop like really bad news on a late Thursday or a late Friday. Well, it was Sony's news. Now, it's bad news for Sony purists in the form and factor that they are going third party. It's the writing is there. It's not on the wall, folks. It's in print. We will read it verbatim of exactly what happened Friday afternoon. So much so that I did what the kids like to call an emergency stream. And I got a shout out, of course, Crispy Bomb, Korkenstein, and we did have a guest for about 6.5 minutes in the form of Hargeet Chani, who had to go do another show. But my God, ladies and gentlemen, the industry is changing in such a big way, and a lot of the Sony trolls who don't get named on this program because, we're not about that smoke life, went into witness protection, went into hiding, went into the cabin in the woods, went down the well, around the corner, and through the roof, just to get out of the way of all of the pointed conversation that was happening. Pretty interesting stuff. We are going to get into it. But you know what? On top of that good news for anyone that is an Xbox, purist, never had a PlayStation, but always wanted to play something like God of War, Spider-Man, Horizon. Well, those games might actually be coming at some point or another. And we know that based on the job listing, but that wasn't the only piece of good news for Xbox. 9 million players in a pinch over 3 months for Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remake. That is insane. Over 9 million players of a game. First of all, it is a remake. They call it a remaster. I don't know why they call it that. But I got to tell you, I was talking to the guys in the green room. Bethesda is quietly having one hell of a year, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, you had Doom, right? You have the Oblivion, remake, doing big numbers. You had a couple of updates for Fallout 76, for ESO. You have the Indiana Jones DLC releasing later this year. We had some new information on the Starfield. Starborn DLC is still being worked on. That could release this year. I mean, wow, they've been cooking. But, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited because the Chaos Lounge making his grand debut. He was supposed to be here a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, something happened personally, which we won't get into, but he's here. He's well. He's sitting up unassisted. Chaos Lounge, my brother from another. How are you feeling? And welcome.
Thanks, man. Yeah, like I said, I'm feeling amazing. Was able to go out for a long walk for the first time today in what seems like a lifetime, being stuck at home and just resting constantly. But thankfully, the worst is past, and my health has come back to full cycle. So I've been doing great. Lots of video gaming, lots of sleeping. It's all been good.
Well, you happen to arrive at a really good time because we have some very pointed topics. Cannot wait to get into what your thoughts and theories on what Sony's going to be doing. And of course, 9 million players in just a pinch over 3 months is a really, really big deal for a game that we heard was coming out, was shadow dropped. And guess what, folks? The Oblivion is really freaking good. But Fuzzy Belvedere, I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to hang out on Friday evening when I did the quote-unquote emergency stream. But I knew that you were going to be here on Monday. And, well, we have a lot to get into, kind sir. Sony going full on third party. We will certainly see. How you feeling, brother? Welcome back.
Oh, I'm feeling great. Glad to be here with you. Man, this is gonna be a good show because I don't know. I guess a lot of us had talked about, at some point Sony is going to copy Xbox. They're not just going to keep this sitting down, like where they let Xbox, take all that money from their customers without trying to do the same. So I don't know. Maybe that position is about that, or as the ponies are now trying to claim, oh, we're getting too excited. It's just going to be live service. Well, they already did the live service. Why would you need somebody to do what's already done? But yeah, we'll get into it. This is going to be a fun one. So I'm expecting to be clipped some more. So
Oh,
I mean, that take doesn't even make sense, right? The whole live service thing. Like, what are they paying? 370K for just their games?
Listen, it's fine. It's fine. You know what? If you know, Paris once said, Paris Lilly, I said his name twice. Paris Lilly, that's 3 times. He might show up as the Candyman does. He says that when they clip you, you've officially made it, and he's not wrong. I look, folks. I've said this before, and we're not going to name the names because it's not necessary to do that, right? We don't have to do that. I don't hate watch anything. I don't have enough time in the day. I'm in the gym anywhere between 90 minutes to 2 hours per day. I take care of the house. I have 5 live shows. I have to produce the content and turn things into video. Oh, and by the way, I got to find time to actually play games. I don't hate watch anything. So it's crazy to me that people do. But hey, listen, you know what? A hobby is a hobby, even if it's weird. But listen, gentlemen, and I'll start first with the Chaos Lounge. I have an article here pulled from our great friends, not our good friends, our great friends over at the Xbox Era. Of course, John, Nick, and Jesse do an amazing job each and every week. And of course, Jesse Norris, one of the most talented reviewers I've ever had a chance to meet in real life and read his work and have on the show. By the way, Jesse, if you're listening, brother, I'm going to reach out to you. Maybe we'll get you on tomorrow's show. I know that he's going to be on his way to Cologne, Germany at the back end of the month for August for Gamescom, and he's looking to pop on some people's shows. So Jesse, I'll reach out to you via DM. Jesse Norris wrote an article for XboxEra.com, which I am going to read verbatim, and it says the Elder Scrolls Oblivion 4 remaster has hit 9 million players. That's right, folks. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, a game that is probably one of my favorite RPGs of all time, got a remake, remaster, and did gangbuster numbers. And you know something? It's one of those things that you look and you say, wow, super smart of Xbox to make this a multi-plat release, because it ultimately was a multi-plat release when it first came out many, many moons ago. And 9 million players is nothing to sneeze at. And of course, I'm going to read a little bit from the article, Chaos Lounge. And it says this: The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered has reached 9 million plus players in 3 months after its surprise launch. In a post on social media today, Bethesda Game Studios announced that The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered has in fact reached a new milestone of 9 million players. And of course, this is what the exact presser from Bethesda Game Studios has to say. And it says this, folks: to everyone who emerged as a hero of catch, I think it's catch, is the V is silent. Mastered Archmage, rose to Grand Champion, banished the Blackwood Company, gallivanted as the Gray Fox, and listened to the night. Thank you for sharing in our worlds. And has a really wild picture of the guy's hair shaped into a 9 that says 9 million players, so many champions. This is great. This is just goes to show you, and again, folks, I said it earlier, Bethesda is, in my opinion, one of the most important developers and / publishers that gaming currently has. I put them even ahead. Again, this is just my personal opinion, ahead of Square Enix. And it's not because Final Fantasy doesn't matter. Final Fantasy does matter, and I can't wait to play Final Fantasy VII Remake, hopefully this holiday. I think we're going to get that announcement at TGS. We will certainly see. But they have proven time and time again that their games are just pure magic in the making. You can go back to how many people are still playing Starfield? How many people on PlayStation are hoping for that announcement? I got news for you folks. I don't know when that could possibly happen, but if there was one place that I think that's a really, really all eyes on gaming, it'd be Gamescom. Gamescom would be a really great spot for Xbox and Bethesda to announce that the not only here's a trailer for the DLC that's supposed to release this year, but you might have a quote unquote game of the year edition for the PlayStation 5. I think the PlayStation fans would go crazy for it. I think they've been waiting for it if they haven't already bought it on PC, and I think that game is going to move. It's going to have big numbers. But getting back to the Elder Scrolls 4 Chaos Lounge, this is really something else because you know what? There's another game that quote unquote could be shadow dropped later this year. And I think it's actually going to happen closer to season 2 of Fallout. And that's Fallout 3 Remake that we learned from the court proceedings during the ABK trial that these games were in development. Well, one came true, and we keep hearing from the grapevine. I don't know where these grapes are getting this information from, but I'm listening. It could be Fallout. Let's talk about the Elder Scrolls 4 Chaos Lounge. Are you happy to know that people are still loving and buying this game?
Well, the first thing first, I mean, they call it a remaster, right? But
yes.
Compare it to the original. I get it. Maybe they use like a couple of voice lines and they're having to use the term remaster. But this is more of a remake than a remaster. And they've done it in such a good way as well. I haven't heard a single bad thing about it, honestly. And, I'm really happy that the game is doing so well. And this just gives them more motivation, more reason to push forward with other ports. Can you imagine if they did gave that same treatment to other games like Morrowind or to, the 475th release of Skyrim? But giving it that kind of quality, graphical bump up that people come to expect today, and actually polishing it, fixing the stuff that was broken in the original release, and then putting out like a really nice modern version of it. You've seen how well Oblivion was taken up, and it's just amazing, and it just makes you wonder what would happen if they did it to Morrowind.
Well, you know what? That's interesting, and I want to kind of further that conversation because if there's one thing that was proven by this release is older Bethesda games are still beloved and sought after. And you bring up a great point. Morrowind is, for a lot of people, their tip of spear. And if they, and I say they, work with the same team or teams that help bring Oblivion remastered to current consoles, and they took a tried and true classic like Morrowind and gave it the same TLC, Chaos Lounge, that would be another quote unquote banger. And again,
Oh, yeah.
I listen, I know that a lot of people, like when this came out, if you read the bylines, if you get into the socials, people immediately were like, whoa, if you did this for Oblivion and it looks this good, what about Morrowind? I think there's a real shot that the sales on this game, the people playing this game, only after 3 months. I mean, think about that for a second. This is not console warring, folks. As amazing as something like Astrobot was. Like, I know a lot of people don't like it. I loved every second that I played that game. And maybe I'm a big nerd for it. I don't care.
No, I loved
Game
it.
won Game of the Year, Game of the Universe, Game of the Generation. And you know what? I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. Is it perfect? No. Did it really deserve Game of the Year? I mean, that's entirely up to you. It wasn't my Game of the Year, but it came in a close second, right? I loved every second of it. But that game sold about 2 million copies, right? This is a older game that was remade from the ground up, and in 3 months' time has almost four times the amount of players. That's a really big deal. So something like Morrowind, and I think that the success of this game might push that envelope forward. Any additional thoughts on that, Chaos Lounge?
I think the success of Oblivion is going to be taken seriously. I mean, 9 million players, and we've seen how many people on PC have picked it up, people on PlayStation have picked it up, and I think going multiplayer was definitely the right choice for them with this game, especially with the age and everything. Right, it just made perfect sense for its thing, and financially, it was a massive success for them, and they will have seen this as a metric to say, do you know what? There is room here for other remakes and remasters.
Yeah.
And they will be looking at that carefully. Now, here's one for you. Everyone's talking about Fallout 3. What if they actually completely remade Fallout 1 and 2?
That would be something, dude.
It's just an ARPG. But what if they actually turned that into a third-person remake?
That'd be pretty
cool. People haven't played that.
I've never played those two. I never played Fallout 1 and 2 because I'm not an ARPG guy. I'm not a PC guy, but that would be a story. You know what? Look, I know I might get booed in the chat for this. This is fine, right? I love Fallout 3. I enjoyed Fallout 4, right? My favorite Fallout is a non-Bethesda game that's made by Obsidian. It is, of course, Fallout New Vegas. There's some talk. I'm not. This is not like breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. Just go to the socials. You can see people talking about this. They're working on something else, and all I have heard from people in the know is that many people are going to be happy, and that's all that's all has been said. I got news for you. I just think that the remake situation is something that I don't think there's anything else we could say about your particular take on it, Chaos Lounge. This is going to be investigated because of how well it did, how many people bought it, how many people played it, how many people are still playing it, how many new players might find the Elder Scrolls. And you got to remember, Elder Scrolls 6 is being worked on, and you know something, if this continues to sell, if it continues to make money for them, there is a really good shot that they could do Elder Scrolls 5 in the same form and fashion. Why not? If they can make it as good looking and playing as what they did with Oblivion, oh my God, it'd be something else. But listen, good take all around. Let's bring in Fuzzy Belvedere, but let's get your hot take on 9 million players for a game that they consider to be a remaster, which we all know it's an actual remake. But what are your thoughts, man?
Well, somebody put it, bluntly in the chat. The original game only did 9.5 million lifetime. Like it took it years to reach that number, and here it did it in like a matter of a month. So, kudos to the person that posted that in the chat. But like, you have to wonder how much they're taking notes on this on games that they could, I wouldn't say easily remaster or remake, and go ahead and do an updated engine. Like a lot of stuff seems to be able to be transferred to like a UE5 engine setup and carry over a lot of the assets and still function very similar to like the creation engine that it was using originally. I would have to wonder how many more games they were looking in the Bethesda archive that they were looking to do this, or even other Xbox IPs in general, where sure, we poke fun at Sony for doing like remasters and stuff, although a lot of them are games that were less than a generation, like within the last 3 or 4 years. But for something that's 10 years plus, I think that's going to be something that we can possibly expect once a year, because I'm pretty sure they have some other ones in the queue. Like we've heard some rumblings about a Fallout 3. I like KS Lounge's idea as far as like 1 and 2 being remade,
Dude,
whether it
crazy.
be an actual like a first person / third person setup, or even if they updated the ARPG, because things like Diablo do well, and bringing that back, and now having some of the original developers that worked on it from In Exile and Obsidian, within your walls, I would say it would be a worthwhile venture to consider doing something along those lines. You would open up that title into a much broader audience that are looking for something that isn't an ARPG type of deal. So that would be a cool spin as well. But yeah, for Oblivion to do that amount within a short period of time, keeping it multi-plat, which made total sense. Well, not keeping it multi-plat, but making it a multi-plat title on that release, I think was, what Xbox is going to do to make that extra funding to put back towards, these games that they're going to constantly have teams working on. Now, on occasion, some projects might get shuttered or whatever the case may be, but in the grand scheme of things, this has to bode well for not just Bethesda as a whole, but overall what their plans moving forward, where we're still getting new IPs, we're still getting sequels to some beloved titles and franchises, and we might get an occasional, updated version of something that's beyond 10 years old. And I think that's the better path than, remastering something that would have been on Xbox One or something along those lines per se type of deal. But yeah, that's amazing for them to do those types of numbers that quick. Xbox has been killing it. Like Forza Horizon 5 selling 3 million on PlayStation, 4-year-old game. That's doing well.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure when they I'm not looking forward to it, but when they announce Starfield, I'm pretty sure that will do some awesome numbers. I'm curious to see if it's re-reviewed by, the IGN 7s of the world type of thing. But, outside of that, can't fault Bethesda on this remaster, and, or remake would be, I guess, the more correct term. But yeah, I played it a good bit. Never played the original Oblivion. It was an awesome RPG that was high fantasy, which I'm not really the high fantasy guy, but after playing Avowed and things along those lines, it's like it was at the perfect time for that type of release. Although I did get to play a little bit of Expedition 33, and I know there was some controversy on that as far as timing, but both titles did well.
Yep.
You can't fault Game Pass at that point, where you have two big titles drop and both of them do spectacularly well in the service and outside of the service. So, kudos to Bethesda and, everything they've been doing.
There's one more thing I wanted to add.
Sure, please, by all means.
There's one thing that is often missed. So Elder Scrolls 6, we saw the trailer like 45 years ago for Elder Scrolls 6. And it'll probably be with us in the next, our grandkids may actually get to experience it one day. But as well as the 9 million milestone that's been achieved by Oblivion, it's brought in a lot of new players that weren't Elder Scrolls players.
Yes.
You've got the people that were playing it. And I think what they're probably doing is doing this in a systematic way. I've also heard rumblings in the grapevines about Vegas. So you're not the only one. I've also heard these little rumblings going around, nothing concrete or anything, but I've heard the whispers of the remake of Vegas, but obviously nothing's confirmed. But I think they're kind of doing this in a systematic way, and I think we are going to see more Elder Scrolls games being remade, remastered, because it's just gearing up to bring more people into that universe.
Yes.
So when Elder Scrolls 6 drops, they will be in the best possible place to say, here is the new and shiny, go crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great point. Look, success breeds additional content, right? If this comes out and it doesn't sell, it doesn't move the needle, right? No one cares. Then the thought and theory of them revisiting any of the older ones goes away. But the fact that this, and I didn't even know this, and this is an amazing point. Whoever Fuzzy put that in the chat is a freaking genius. So Oblivion, one of the best RPGs of the 360 era, in my opinion, only had a lifetime of 9.6 million sales, right? That's 9.6. Think about this for a second. For its lifetime on 360, while it was a relevant game, and Bethesda games live on forever, what we're saying is the remake has 9 million players in 3 months. That is success that I don't think even Xbox or Bethesda themselves thought was possible. So you take something like, and again, Oblivion is beloved, but I would dare say that if you're talking about Fallout, one of the most beloved Fallout games, as great as 3 was, as very enjoyable as 4 was, New Vegas is by far the tip of spear. If you give that the remake treatment that you just gave Oblivion, you have a 10 million seller. And I'm not saying that because I'm hoping to the gaming gods that it comes true, even though I am. But I mean, that's one of my personal favorites of all time. As much as, again, I love Fallout, but my favorite Fallout is Vegas. And if you can make new money with old IP, even though it wouldn't be technically old, it'd be a remake rather than a remaster, that breeds, hey, we got to do 2. We got to get working on 2. You know, Fallout 5, yeah, we're working on that. There's a lot of things changing at Bethesda. What, I don't specifically know. Trust me, I'm asking around because they have a lot of IP, and they have a lot of IP that people want to play like yesterday. Fallout being one of them, Elder Scrolls being another Starfield, whether it be an MMO, whether it be a co-op one, whether it be a Starfield 2. They have a lot of IP, especially big open world RPGs that people really, really enjoy, and I am certainly one of them. Look, what a phenomenal way to open up the show. We were supposed to have Shan from Dirt Griggity's show, and he said that he might be able to make it. He wasn't sure, but if we don't get him on today, we will certainly get him on at one point or another. He knows he's always welcome here whenever he has the free time. I believe Dirt will be joining us on Wednesday evenings, prime time gaming. So look forward to hearing what Dirt has to say. And there's been a lot of really big news that has dropped today regarding Gamescom and the ROG Ally or the ROG Xbox Ally. I'm like, people were sending me DM. Shout out to King Styles. Shout out to Sith Lord. You know what? Let me just give credit where credit is due, because I got a lot of super chats. Brett Bingham dropped some stuff in there. King Webb, not to be forgotten about, because that guy drops on a regular basis stuff in there. So thank you, gentlemen. Aces 352 is also another gentleman that consistently drops DMs to me. And there's a lot of news, ladies and gentlemen. But speaking of news, before we actually get into it, let me catch up on the super chats. Been a couple of them over here, a couple of member chats. And then we're going to get into the biggest news of what I believe to be 2025. As much good news as there's been for Xbox, of course, you know, there's been a couple of rake steps. That happens. Sony is not oblivious to that as well. They've all had their problems. Nintendo with their $80 games, never a good thing. So there's been a lot of both good and so-so news. And look, I'll say this. If you are a Sony purist, this is bad news. You don't like it. If you are someone that wants games everywhere, you're loving this. And what am I talking about? PlayStation going full on third party. We're going to get into exactly what that job listing said. And I got news for you folks. If you think they're going to kind of sit on their hands and wait to see how things play out, you are wrong. But we will get into that momentarily. Adidas 20, a member for 30 months. Adidas, salute to you, kind sir. Thank you so much for the support. We super appreciate it. He says, salute to you, Dr. Pepper. I appreciate that. You know, it's interesting. I haven't had a Dr. Pepper all year. I'm more of a ginger ale with lime and lemon in there. But I like to let my hair down, as the kids like to say, and have and go crazy and have a Dr. Pepper because I don't drink. But thank you so much for that, brother. Cullen Prime drops a very generous super chat. Colin goes on to say, neither PlayStation or Xbox are a full third party. To be that, neither of them would have hardware anymore to put their games on. Sega got out of the console business and became full third party. I disagree with that, brother. I appreciate the $10 super chat, but I wholeheartedly disagree with that. Xbox is full third party. They're putting their games, maybe not day and date every game, like, Avowed isn't on PlayStation yet. South of Midnight isn't on there, but they're putting their games here, there, and everywhere. That's third party. When you put your games everywhere, whether you have a hardware or not, and Sony is eventually gonna. I mean, Sony is already doing that with certain titles. It's they got MLB The Show that comes to Xbox. They have Death Stranding 1 that came to Xbox. Yeah, I know that's Kojima's thing. They just announced Helldivers for the 26th of August. We're going to get into what I think is going to happen. But yeah, I again, you're entitled to your opinion, brother, and I appreciate the generosity, but they are full third party, and Sony is going to get there eventually. Ginger Prime, salute to you, kind sir. Nice to have you in the chat, and thank you for being a channel member. He says, what a fun day for gaming news. Oh, today's news has been bonkers, and I'm not even up to speed. Like, I literally left the gym at 11:21. I ran back here. I shaved because I looked like Obi-Wan Kenobi with this beard, and I had to get rid of it. And I haven't had a chance to kind of really, look through all the news. But it's again, great day to be a gamer for sure. I think I hear you typing, Fuzzy.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah,
sorry.
That's right. No sweat. Why So Serious drops a very generous $2 super chat. He goes on to say, where is Shan? Listen, he has the link. He said that if he's going to show up, he might just pop in. Awesome. We'll get his hot take because, again, he has been TTSing all over the place, him, Dirt, and the rest of the gang. And, we're going to get into it right now. But look, folks, Friday evening, I'm sitting on the couch, and I'm watching one of our me and Mrs. Boom's one of our new K dramas that we enjoy, because that's something that we enjoy together. And I look and I see I have 7 DMs, and I'm like, that is a little odd for a Friday evening. And I go and I look, and I see something from Crispy Bomb where it says there's a job listing for Sony. And it mentions, expanding beyond PlayStation consoles to, the PC stores, Xbox, Nintendo, and mobile. And I read it once, and I'm like, okay, we kind of knew that they were doing something like this. And then I read it again, and I said, whoa, hold on a second. Hold on. They specifically spell out going third party on this. This is what Xbox did all those months ago. And every Xbox player who's a fan of the box, considered diehard Xbox, got run through the mud, right? So I said, I got to do a stream. So I went live. It was an hour and 16 minutes of glory. So I have the story here that was posted by Jez Corden of Windows Central regarding this exact thing. But I did have it here. What did I do with it? Sometimes I want to punch myself in the face. Okay, so what I used for, and I will add Jez's story to the show notes. If you want to read it, you can click on it. Obviously, it's giving them clicks, and it was a well-written story as per the norm when it comes to Jez Corden. But on Friday, I used Hazador Gaming's tweets, and I'm going to reuse them, and of course, add those to the show notes if you want to read them yourself. Well, this comes the way of job-boards.greenhouse.io Sony Interactive. And says, and again, Ador writes, according to the job listing, gentlemen, Sony to expand PlayStation Studio titles across Steam, Epic Game Store, Xbox, Nintendo, and mobile, reporting to the Vice President of Commercial Management as Senior Director of Multi-Platform and Account Management. And this is what the job breakdown actually says. Again, shout out to Hazardor Gaming for posting this. It says this, ladies and gentlemen, I'll read verbatim. You will play a critical leadership role in shaping and executing the global commercial strategy for PlayStation Studio software titles across, this is the line, folks, all digital platforms beyond PlayStation hardware, including Steam, Epic Game Store, Xbox, Nintendo, and mobile. It continues. This role is accountable for optimizing title profitability, ensuring cross-functional alignment, and leading a high-performing team focused on multi-platform expansion, mid-range commercial planning, and platform partner management. I don't know how much more pointed the job posting needs to get, Chaos Lounge, but we don't do the names thing here, folks. I saw the backpedaling, the goalpost moving. Look, some people move so many goalposts over the weekend, they must look like The Rock by the time Monday morning came up, because my God, the best of the best when it comes to anti-Xbox rhetoric went into social media hiding. You couldn't find these guys and gals on the social media sites. They were nowhere to be found. I saw people actually putting up I was gonna say wanted posters, but missing posters on trees and poles outside the house. You know, such and such missing. Where did they go? I even saw something when I went to Stop and Shop on the back of a milk cart. I was very concerned for this said person. And you know what? They still have not come forward or, even showed they are alive. I don't know what's happening, but I will say I had a lot of fun over the weekend. And I will say that, some people accuse me of console warring a tad bit. Folks, I'm in my fucking villain arc. That's the one curse you're going to get from me. And I should be, because, look, if there's anyone that deserves redemption, it's me. And I normally don't pat myself on the ass. I looked at a tweet that I did, that someone clipped me from January, calling me some really egregious things about my Helldivers 2 theory and thought. And I knew it was happening, folks. I had it on good authority, it was. And I was run through the mud by a lot of the real nasty MFers. And I am going to take this victory lap, as I deserve. And guess what, folks? Everything that the troll community that uses hate rhetoric for subs and people's money and everything that's disgusting about the YouTube business might be actually out of a channel, because everything that they use for hate rhetoric is now blown up in their face. And guess what? Sony is going third party, and you're going to see Ratchet and Clank on Xbox. You're going to see The Last of Us on Xbox. You're going to see Spider-Man on Xbox. And I say hashtag whole slate. King, who is 98% right of the time, agrees with me, and I'm not the only one in this community that does. You know why? Because Sony's a corporation that right now has a trading stock of $24.63. Do you know what Microsoft stock is trading for? And thanks to King David for pointing this out yesterday. $514 per share.
Only a small difference.
So, yeah, I think Sony not only needs money, but wants to make money. And they have done this before. In Chaos Lounge, you actually said this. They have copied Microsoft before, and they're going to copy them again, because guess what? Putting your wares on a console that doesn't have games of that ilk, like a Spider-Man or The Last of Us, people are going to buy them in droves, and they're going to get money. So, Chaos Lounge, let's talk about what happened this last Friday. Get your thoughts, your theories, and would you consider Sony to have, quote-unquote, jumped the shark, so to speak?
Not at all. I think at this point in the game, I mean, if you look at Spider-Man, right? Just look at Spider-Man 2. That game cost $315 million to make. And in order for them to break even, they had to sell 7.2 million digital copies. That's digital only.
Wow.
And we know PlayStation fans love their physicals, right? If it ain't physical, they ain't buying it. That's their slogan, right? And at the end of the day, if you looked at the leaked Insomniac's documents, Marvel if it's bundled, and we knew, during Christmas it was bundled like crazy.
Yes.
People were buying it. Per box product, Marvel was taking almost 50% of that value for that game.
Correct.
They weren't, so Sony weren't even taking 30% after the shop owner was taking their cut as well. You're looking at a reduced rate there because of the contract that they signed. Then you have the actual box product that goes to the shop that, has its whole cost of manufacturing. Then the shop dealer takes his take, publishing takes his take, and then it goes back to Sony. Not forgetting Marvel taking their share in that. So you're looking on average of about 12 million estimated, I would say, just ballparking it, that they would need to break even. Maybe 13 million if we're being realistic. Sony hasn't announced anything since the 11 million. So these contracts with Marvel are really, really expensive.
Yeah.
Right? They're no deal. This is why, Microsoft with Blade, I know they haven't announced it, but should they announce that they go, putting it everywhere, I think that's a good call. This Marvel contract is horrible. I don't think anyone can dispute that. But it's clear that these games are costing an arm and a leg. They can't even turn around and experiment with titles anymore. They have to be a sure win, or in this day and age, studios are closing. And when you're looking at a massive franchise like Spider-Man, just look at Spider-Man 3. They're looking to split it into 3 games just so they can actually guarantee that they're going to make their return. That's crazy.
Yeah. And because of the leak, that game is scheduled for what is potentially a $400 million budget.
Yep.
And just for some additional context, you talk about Marvel, right? I made mention of this last week, and I want to use it because right now it's perfect context. The Marvel game, Spider-Man 2, $315 million production budget for that, right? So you say, well, it's high quality, graphics gorgeous, story was really good. I very much enjoyed it. They changed the way Venom's origin was. Awesome. It's fine, right? But here's an interesting tidbit. Spider-Man No Way Home, which made over $1 billion for Marvel and Disney, cost $200 million to make.
That's crazy.
So think about that for a second. The film was $200 million to make. They made over $1 billion, right? That's something else. That's money. Spider-Man 2 got outsold by Helldivers 2, which, by the way, Helldivers 2's production budget was $100 million.
Thanks to PC.
One third of what it cost for Spider-Man 2. You think they made their money back? They did not. That's why they're going third party. But please continue, kind sir.
But I also think if you look at this actual document, the ponies, they're just really coping with what it's saying. And it's writing to you in plain English. Shaping and executing the global commercial strategy for PlayStation Studios software titles. They're not talking about live service here. They're talking about software titles. That's everything under the PlayStation umbrella. They're not talking about, they don't pay someone $370,000 to say, all right, the only game you're going to be looking after is Fair Games, which might be cancelled, by the way. So you can sit there and just twiddle your thumbs and play on your Tamagotchi all day. Right? You're not going to do that. And they clearly state beyond digital platforms. PlayStation hardware, including Steam, Epic, Game Store, Xbox. And I know people are coping at the moment, saying, well, the next generation Xbox is a PC, and with that, it doesn't matter. Then they wouldn't need to mention Xbox. They're clearly talking about the Series X. And Nexus now, as their number one porting platform, has the series, has the dev kits in tow. You don't buy those dev kits for one game. And the next part here is the most important part of this. The role is accountable for optimizing title profitability. And that is what Hiroki Totoki is all about. He doesn't care about fanboys. He doesn't care about their tiers. He doesn't care about anything. And I think it was someone on your show maybe some time ago when the same situation happened with Xbox. I can't remember who it was, but maybe you might remember. He was on the show saying, Microsoft doesn't care about the hardcore fanboys. If you want to leave, you can leave, but you won't, because your collection is here. And it's going to be the same thing with them. At the end of the day, you're seeing all these people moaning and making a big fuss about it, but eventually, once the games come out, that's it. It's going to be a complete meltdown. It's going to be complete. And the first like 2 sets of franchises that are, in my opinion, the hot target. And wouldn't it be amazing if we found out something from Insomniac this week, considering they've been hinting that there's
Dude,
big
they've been
news coming
tweeting like crazy. Yes, I'm glad you made mention of that. Yes.
But so Spider-Man runs on the Sunset Overdrive engine, which we know works on Xbox. But there's also another engine that we know works on Xbox, the Decima engine. And that's got its whole host of games. There's like 4 or 5 games that are primed that could actually come out this year. Well, not all of them, but any one of those. But Spider-Man or Horizon probably is at the forefront, in my opinion, as one of the ones that potentially could come out by the end of the year.
Yep.
And the best cope I saw from a PlayStation fan, that I won't name his name because I'll respect your wishes, but he turned around and said, "It's okay, folks, don't worry. The only games that are coming are like 1 year old." And then you look at the list, and every single game is on that list available then, outside of Astro.
Yes.
Every game is fair game. It's like, so what you're saying is every game that you've just said in your arsenal is fair game. Okay, good. That's a nice cope there, buddy. That is like the best cope ever. All our games are readily available for you to take, except for Astrobot. Okay, good stuff.
I mean,
I don't even think they know what they're saying anymore.
Well, look, I brought up, just for context and conversation, what Nixus has actually done. And you and I were having a great conversation in the green room. It was so good we could actually had it, for the show, which is why I'm bringing it up now. So Nixus Software was purchased to forward Sony's plans to put games on PC. And of course, it started with older games like Spider-Man 2018. They worked on Horizon Zero Dawn. They worked on the remaster, Spider-Man remaster. They worked on Miles Morales. They worked on Ratchet and Clank Ripped Apart. They've worked on quite a few. The only one that they didn't work on that was ported by someone else, and I don't remember the studio's name, was God of War 2018. But pretty much everything else, including Ghost of Tsushima, they worked on. So they have we know that for a fact that they have the dev kits, folks, because they ported Helldivers 2. And if you think that it's just one and done, and that's the other thing. Let me address something here. The one thing, gentlemen, that I saw people running with was, it's only going to be multiplayer. It's only going to be gas games. Well, that story starts and stops very quickly. And here's why. What gas games are you guys and gals talking about? Helldivers 2 is coming on the 26th. What, Fair Games is coming over too? Fair Games may not even make it out of the stable. Nope. It's probably gonna get canceled because even the founder of the studio is gone. Jade Raymond is gone, ladies and gentlemen. The leader of that studio is gone. Destiny already on Xbox. The other Bungie game that has already been Marathon is already coming to Xbox. So what gas games are these people talking about? I don't know. Yes, I know it's shocking that a single player story driven game like a Spider-Man, like a Ratchet and Clank, like a Returnal, like a Ghost of Tsushima, like a God of War. Oh, heaven forbid. Because I said the same thing about a year and a half ago about Gears, Halo, and Forza. And guess what? Gears is going to be released on the 26th for PlayStation. They already have, and by the way, this is a little shade. Their best-selling game on PlayStation 5 in 2025 is not a Sony game. It is Forza Horizon 5. which, by the way, is 4 years old and outsold Astrobot.
And do you think
Think about
Sony shareholders aren't seeing this?
There
Oh,
you
they're
go, sir.
definitely seeing this.
They are seeing this, and they're saying, like, look, that IP there ain't making no money, and I like money, and I want money. I invested in you, I want money. And that's all they're saying. But they don't care about console wars or what's this and that. You know, they're just going to look at what's the best way for me to maximize my return.
Yes.
And that's literally shareholder. Like, I remember during the Anthem days, I knew one of the big shareholders that was actually when they were looking at releasing Anthem 2.0. And at the time, they were offered, the shareholders were basically given like a choice. We can only go forward with 2 titles. And the shareholders were the ones that ended up making the decision to go with Mass Effect and Dragon Age Veilguard, and they opted to not go with Anthem 2.0. But it was the shareholders who made that decision, not the CEO, not the development team. The shareholders who made the investment made that choice. That's how much power these people have. And they don't care about your tears. I mean, at the end of the day, they just want to make money, and that's all they're there for. But the point that people often forget, Sony started off, right, as it's only on PlayStation. And then slowly they said, right, well, we've just got this one game on PlayStation, Horizon Zero Dawn. And then they said, well, we're not going to put any more single player games. It's just going to be live service games. And then they said, well, the first single player games are going to be like 2, 3, maybe 4 years apart. Then it dropped to 2 years apart. Then it dropped to, remasters aren't the same thing when we're re-releasing the game, so they can go day and date. Then it dropped down to Spider-Man being like almost 1 year apart. And that time and acceptance by their community has been slowly but surely eroding. And it's like getting closer and closer. It's almost like, you know, the analogy, you put a frog in a boiling water so it doesn't realize. It's basically that. You know, they're just slowly and, you know, they're just nurturing them ever so slowly until what's done is done and there's no going back. And now I think they've hit that point.
Yeah.
They've really hit that point now. And, you know, you don't hire someone for $370,000 to do nothing. And these single player games, they're not making any money anymore. So they're going to, you know, it's inevitable.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, the return on investment is not as much as it used to be. Game budgets have ballooned, right? Sony's games are expensive to make. And you know how you know that's true? During their business meeting, what did they wind up saying, Fuzzy Belvedere? They said that they were going to go and release 1 AAA bomb per year, where they were known for upwards of 4, right? They're not, listen, Jim Ryan said it before he was fired. PlayStation Nation is just not enough. We have to find another avenue, and that's why they went to PC. And again, Chaos Lounge put it perfectly. First, it was 2 years, then a year, then 6 months, and then look what would have happened to Helldivers 2 if it wasn't ultimately saved by PC players, right? I mean, think about this for a second. The numbers that I'm able to find, and it sold very well. Helldivers 2 sold over 14 million copies. Did you know that 12 million of those came the way of Steam sales?
Yeah.
So that means what? That out of the 80 million consoles that they continue put up front every time they're going to have a conversation, consoles, 2.2 million people on PlayStation bought the game. That's not a really great number, man. And that's why that game was launched day and date. And look how well it did because of it. Now, I'm not saying, I don't personally think that you're going to see a PlayStation 5 game day and date on Xbox. I just don't see that. But maybe, right?
I do.
But, Fuzzy, let's get into this job posting, because I think Chaos Lounge really hit the nail on the head. And there's really no arguing this point. You're not going to pay a human being nearly $400,000 to literally sit on a hand and just drink lattes. No, they want them in making big business decisions that are going to make more money. And look, they don't have to sell 10 million copies to port. Look, the port of Spider-Man 2018, a game that is currently 7 years old, right? It's already been ported, the remastered edition of it by Nixxes. It would not be a heavy investment from Sony to get that ported to Xbox. Even if they only sold 1 million of them at $70, because I don't know if they're going to charge 60 or 50 because it's an older title. We don't know what they're going to charge. But if they look, folks, I know plenty of people in this chat right now that would buy Spider-Man 2018. I platinumed it. I played the remaster. I would gladly buy it. Not even thinking twice, because I love Insomniac and I love their interpretation of Peter Parker and Spider-Man's world. And I would gladly buy it. And I think I'm going to have that opportunity because it's the one that makes the most sense for everything that Chaos Lounge said about the dealings with Marvel. You got to remember the takeaway from Marvel used to be 25%. They upped the ante to 35%.
Yep.
Yeah, for every game
45.
sale is 35% in Marvel and Disney's pockets.
And bundles are 45%.
And bundles are 45%.
Hey, Marvel's putting the screws to them so they can hopefully reacquire the Spider-Man IP.
And that's the rumor in the trades. But let's get your thoughts on a couple of things. I know this is going to be one of those topics that you kind of, you might go a little crazy with, and it's fine because this is a conversational podcast. Let's talk about the announcement of the job, basically confirming they're going third party. And I want to get your thoughts and your theories on the backpedaling that went on with the PlayStation community, because it was pretty ridiculous. Some of the takes were really so poor. I couldn't believe that they were actually running with it. But let's get your thoughts.
Well, I like the aspect that you were talking about when it came to the games as a service. Like, what games? Because 8 or 9 of them out of the 12 have been canceled. We haven't heard anything as of late other than a postponement for Marathon and Fair Game. There's one of the Horizon, Forbidden West, or whatever the multiplayer.
There's
Horizon
mobile
game.
And there's something else, some other multiplayer that they're talking about. Yeah, it looks like Fortnite. Terrible.
Yeah, one was canceled. The other one's still in processing. So this person would not be hired at that income level and have a team under them for those titles that are basically on the edge of possibly being canceled. Like if they had this position 2 years ago, maybe it would make sense when they still had at least 4 or 5 games as a service as potentially still being spun up. But at this point, it points mainly to, and I know some people will backpedal and say they're PS4 titles, and that, I guess you could say there's some truth to that, because any game that was ported to PC should be an easy shake to get ported to Xbox. Sony is a little bit different coding. Same thing with Nintendo for proprietary hardware and software, but a lot of the coding for Xbox is off of Windows. So considering how things mainly work on Windows, and games aren't necessarily made for Steam in the way where they're only using their basic proprietary software in the background to run it. It's mainly, all of these games are geared for Windows primarily, with some uplift or changes for the Steam OS operating in the background. But any of the like God of Wars that came to PC, those are potential. I know people clip me about the Returnal aspect. It's a co-op game. It didn't do well. I mean, it did well enough for their studio prior to their acquisition. But overall, especially with Soros or whatever that's coming in a year or two, it might be worthwhile getting some extra funding out of a different platform that has yet to have exposure to that game, and seeing how well, at least from a pre-order standpoint, Helldivers is doing, because it is kind of an Xboxy kind of game. I would say Returnal might be, able to land or nail that as well, considering the co-op feature that they'll probably highlight. It didn't seem like PlayStation cats were very interested in it. Some PC people were, but Xbox, most games it seems like most people, because of the way party chat and how Xbox Live has been the backbone for Xbox for decades, I would say it stands a better chance on the Xbox platform. And no, that's not port begging. I already own the game on PlayStation. I'm just saying what makes sense. And the fact that there are knuckleheads out there that are like, oh, well, it's only going to be multiplayer. Okay, let's hold that post where it is. Are you going to stand up and say my bad when you're wrong when a single player game gets released, or are you going to go into hiding like most of you have done? Like, it's funny. Y'all were cheering for Forza Horizon 5, and because some of y'all bought it, y'all are in this predicament, because it goes to show Sony isn't going to be blind to Xbox taking 70% of that sale on a game that's outperforming everything they've put out this year without, possibly looking inward, especially when you have a businessman that's at the top of the food chain over at Sony. But hey, celebration, more for it. But as far as the single player games, I think right now anything that's on PC is easy, low hanging fruit, ripe for the pickings kind of thing. They'll probably stagger it out where they might only release, just like they are releasing new titles on PlayStation, like one every year kind of thing. As far as their first party, they'll probably do something similar, or maybe they go with the whole slate in, one every couple of months or so, because hey, money is money, and the faster you do something, the faster you get that money or that return on investment. And then you can put it towards Spider-Man 3 production, or you can put it towards, the next Ratchet and Clank, which has been, on hold indefinitely kind of thing. But yeah, I think a lot of people are in their fields as far as this job position and not understanding the nature of it. It's like, you have to realize, if you look deep down in the history of video game stuff, with the exception of Nintendo, because they tend to go in the opposite direction of whatever the trend might be at that particular minute, and then they set their own trend. But when it comes to things that happen with Xbox and PlayStation, if something succeeds for that other platform, the other one is going to follow. Or if something is more of a burden financially, and they, cut ties with it, much like the movies thing, which Sony did 2 or 3 years ago, and the PlayStation people were like, oh, it's no big deal. And then it's like, and then they wanted to make a big deal when Xbox did the same thing. But it's like, hey, people are going digital and they're using streaming services, so things like that don't matter anymore. Well, at least for some. I know there are some that, really hope that they would be able to, continue to be able to purchase their movies within that service. But considering all the apps that you can use on your Xbox as far as streaming and Prime, you could still make purchases there as well. And with a lot of the ones that you can make on Xbox, you'll find that some of that stuff on like the Stream Anywhere app, you'll be able to still use outside of your Xbox. So you don't, at least you don't lose your library like you did temporarily for WB titles on PlayStation. But all of that aside, people should have known, and a lot of us on the Xbox side had speculated that at some point Sony's going to do something similar, because there's no way they're going to leave money on the table. Yes, they're slow as far as when it comes to spinning up their PC sales and stuff like that. And I've always said they need to get closer to a day and date. And as Chaos Lounge, pointed out earlier, that time or that window is getting smaller and smaller each and every title that they choose to port over. And the reason being is you don't want to spend, 2 budgets for advertising, one for the console and then the second one for PC, when you're not going to get the cannibalization, let's say, from that in high regard, where if somebody has a PC and a PlayStation, could they double dip? Sure. But chances are they're probably only going to buy it wherever they prefer to play that game. So if it is for PlayStation, maybe they buy it on PlayStation. But if you release it the same day on PC, you're getting the same money if you have your own PC store, which is in the works, and it's been in the works for a while. But that's going to be something that we'll see become closer to a day and date thing as time progresses. But as far as stuff coming over to Xbox or even Nintendo for that matter, that's a player base that didn't have those IPs earlier that you now with, well, as long as they don't have like multiple consoles, which a lot of us in the Xbox community that talk about games, we tend to have a lot of, the other platforms as well. Some of us might double dip, some of us might not, but there are plenty that are on that platform that will say, you know what, I'll give Spider-Man a try. It's $60 or whatever the case may be. It might be worthwhile. Or maybe they do a discounted price or a bundled deal with the 2018 and Miles Morales like they did for the PS5 when it launched and stuff. So all of those things are money that Sony is leaving on the table as time progresses. And that's why Nixus is working behind the scenes with their Series X, dev kits. And I'm pretty sure they got their Nintendo Switch 2 dev kits, which, I kind of wonder how fast some of these ports are going to be, considering that's supposed to be on par with a PS4 Pro. So we could see almost like a direct port for some of the games to the Switch 2. But anything that's been ported to PC, I would say that's going to be a fairly simple port in comparison. But it now we can actually talk about games instead of the silliness of, oh well, Xbox is dead. I mean, by that same logic, is PlayStation dead? When God of War comes over or when Days Gone comes over, is PlayStation dead? No. Oh, I guess not. But then I guess that means Xbox isn't dead. As long as they're still producing games, they're going to continue producing hardware, which will, I guess, get that pricing in a couple of weeks at Gamescom and stuff. But now we can focus on the actual ecosystems or the platforms, or voice our complaints on things like the controller battery life for the the DualSense, or focus on how it would be a great feature to have dual entitlement when it comes to PC and PlayStation ports, or maybe the PlayStation player base that also plays on PC would like their trophies to carry over and stuff. These are the things that you guys should probably spend your time focusing on, or focus on actually playing games instead of playing Twitter. But I'm probably talking to brick walls at this point for a lot of those that are really upset and in their feelings on this. And it's funny. So many people left Xbox because they did this type of maneuver. Then they hopped on PlayStation. Now PlayStation's doing that. Are you really Nintendo fans now? All of a sudden, like, I don't know. I most of those same people would say, "Oh, that's kiddie games. I don't play Nintendo." Now, I guess they're going to represent Nintendo. Or are you going to admit that you were playing on PC for a while, like a lot of others, and just represent PC, which is, I guess, the ultimate filter of where most games go to at this point, except for Nintendo games, unless you want to wear a pirate's hat or something. But yeah, I would say this is a great time. This is probably the best time for us to focus on the games and not the BS as far as saying, oh, well, it's on Xbox, it's a crappy game. Well, now it's on PlayStation and you're enjoying it and buying it in droves. And it's now time to focus on, hey, the superior quality of PlayStation games, supposedly, we'll finally get to see hands-on for those that didn't have a PS5 or whatever before. Is it all hype with Astrobot, or was it, truly a groundbreaking platformer? I mean, I think that's possibly part of the fear of why a lot of them are moving these goalposts, because the things that they've held in high regard, like your Gran Turismos, by the way, I played it quite a bit. How does in a year probably have more people playing Forza Horizon if that was supposedly subpar to GT7? I don't know. But then, hey, maybe GT7 comes to Xbox and it does well, or maybe not, because we still have Forza Motorsport, even though they're winding things down and kind of put the team as support. But yeah, I think the best thing now is PlayStation cats just focus on playing games, and if they're crossplay, actually at this point, if you're a console warrior, you should be all about crossplay, because now you're going to have gears. Are you going to get stomped, or are you going to do some stomping? I don't know. Sounds like a lot of y'all will get stomped, but prove me wrong. ask for crossplay on a lot of your other games. Start making that your chant. That should be your battle cry. Ask for crossplay, and then we'll see how it's handled in the game itself. But all things considered, this is a fun time. I love seeing people with crow on their face or eating crow or just egg on their face, whatever the case may be. This is what a lot of us have been saying for a while, and now you're having to face reality. I mean, you can move those goalposts, you can plant some more grass seed over here or over there, but at the end of the day, just understand this exclusivity thing between Xbox and PlayStation is going away. So Nintendo is the exclusive box or exclusive handheld that you can go with, but I have a feeling in the next 5 years they'll probably do something similar with PC, because every time you whack a mole as far as these ROM sites, another one pops up. What better way for them to take that money off the table than to actually, have the titles available for purchase on PC? That way you can have better hardware run the games better than even the Switch 2 can, despite it being a better Switch than the Switch 1 was. But all in all, enjoy your games and enjoy your crow. That's all.
I mean, look, it's one of those situations where Sony has an opportunity to take older IP and make new money. I mean, it's really that simple. And again, just doing the roundtable that we had here today, Sony is not a privately funded company or invested company. It's publicly traded, which means they have people on the board that are looking. People like Hiroki Totoki see something like Forza Horizon 5 is their best-selling game of the year. Again, let that sink in, ladies and gentlemen. A 4-year-old game has sold better than Kojima's newest title. And listen, there's no shade here. Kojima's title looks dope. I didn't buy it on PlayStation because I wait for it to come to Xbox. Just like I bought the director's cut on Xbox, I'll buy Death Stranding 2 gladly. But that is a great game. It's a AAA budgeted game. Looks absolutely outstanding, but it still got outsold by an old racer. Microsoft is making new money with older games. Sony is seeing this happen. They have the numbers. They know how many people on PlayStation are buying it. And that's the other thing. You got to remember, folks, and I keep saying this because I see there's a lot of confusion with it. PlayStation gamers are not trolls. The trolls are the trolls. PlayStation gamers are just gamers. 85+% of PlayStation gamers are casuals, ladies and gentlemen, because it's the cool system to own. These are people that have moved on, maybe not from PS3 to PS4 to PS5. They might have been Xbox 360 fans. The thing happened in 2013 with, hey, if you want to be offline, we got a console for you. Good old Donnie D, right? And they moved from the 360 to the PS4. And if it wasn't because of what Donnie D said, it was because it was $100 cheaper. And they are the casual market. They're like, oh, I'll get a PlayStation. That's fine. And they moved from PlayStation 4 to Pro, potentially, and from Pro to PS5, and maybe even a PS5 Pro. So some of these gamers, again, not all of them, might know what Gears of War is. And they don't care about about the console wars. They care about them being able to play games. And Forza Horizon 5 is a perfect example of that. It's a really unbelievable racer. Maybe they don't like sim racers. Because again, make no mistake, Gran Turismo 7 sold over 14 million copies. That's a lot of copies. A lot of people bought that game. That's excellent. But it's not an arcade racer. It's super sim. And maybe some people don't really dig that, but people are digging Forza. And Sony is seeing this happen in real time. They're seeing, and again, I keep bringing this up because it's relevant to the conversation. What has happened in the last couple of months since the new year started, right? Who had 5 out of the 10 most paid for games in their store? Oh, that's right. That was Xbox games on the PlayStation Store. Multiple versions of it. Indiana Jones had both versions. Forza Horizon had 3 versions. So when you are someone that like Hiroki Totoki and you know that you need change, you have to figure out how do we get our investors to keep investing in the brand. They have to find a way to make new money, and how they're going to make new money is with old software, and they're doing that right now, ladies and gentlemen. They're literally doing it right now. And it's not going to start and end with Helldivers. It's not going to start and end with multiplayer. It is going to be single player games. And it's going to start with Spider-Man. Ratchet and Clank could be there. And I actually think at one point, would it hurt for God of War to make it to Xbox? It might. I mean, it's not going to hurt for me. I mean, I beat it. I loved every second of it. I'd buy it again. If it was at a decent price, I'd buy it and play it again. I know a lot of people would. A lot of people don't have all the consoles. I have everything. Fuzzy has everything. A lot of our panel members have all the consoles, including PC, which I don't game on. But I would still go out and buy Spider-Man 2018. I never played Returnal. I didn't buy it. But I would buy it on Xbox gladly. Days Gone, another one. Why would you put Days Gone on Xbox? Let's see. Again, I know I'm going a little long-winded here, but this is all context to the conversation. Right? That studio has not put out, which is Bend Studio, phenomenal developer. They have not put out a new game since Days Gone in 2019. The game that they were working on was canceled this year, and they had lost 30% of their staff because of it. The open world multiplayer game, the Gas game, was canceled. What do you do with that studio now? What do you do with them? Do you disband them? Well, shit, I hope not. Or do you get them on a port of Days Gone with Nix's help to get it over to Xbox? If you're Sony and you want to make money, that's how you do it. Because, again, you've been keeping the lights on at Bend since 2019 with no new money coming in. What do you do? What are you ultimately going to do? Don't close the studio. Put them on Days Gone and get that done. Because a lot of people on Xbox, including myself, would buy that game. This has turned into... and we're going to go further into this on tomorrow's show. No longer a console war, ladies and gentlemen. It's a content war. And do you know who is in the best position to win that content war? Xbox, because they have 30 plus studios. But I've gone on enough. I want to get some final thoughts from Chaos Lounge, from Fuzzy, and then we'll read the super chats. We'll get everyone out of here. Chaos Lounge, do you want to add any additional context to the conversation we just had?
Just one. Well, there's 2 points I want to make. Number one,
Sure.
if you were hired for this role by Sony, you go in Monday morning and you say, right, what do I have to work with? Can I work with Spider-Man? No. Can I work with The Last of Us? No. Uncharted? No. So what did you hire me for? Fair Games. Do you really think that's going to be Sony's response? Do you think they've only hired them because they're not hiring them for Destiny? Bungie's handling that.
Right.
They're not hiring them for Marathon because Bungie's handling that. Not doing it for Helldivers because that's already out and that's already going over to Xbox. So this whole situation with how they're interpreting it, I mean, just logically think about it. Who are you hiring this guy for? Just for, I mean, what does he have to work with? If they turn around and say no single players are on the field, they don't have any live service games. They canceled all of them. They have nothing. And they really, I mean, if Godzilla, I think his name is, he listed the number of games that PlayStation has actually released as exclusive PlayStation 5 games. And I think there's like 3 games this whole generation that are solely exclusive by Sony. The rest are by Nixxes. There's like 15, 16 games by Nixxes. But when you're looking at it, you can't hire someone for almost $400,000 and say, right, all of this stuff is off limits, but just this one title here is on limits. You can't do that. That's just not how business works. So it's crazy for these people to think that that's exactly what they're talking about. And I know they're trying to, cope and they're trying to console themselves while they are, in some weird way suffering. But the worst part out of all this is that when the Xbox fans were going through exactly the same thing with the whole Tim Stewart moment, these guys saw it and they experienced it and saw the reaction. And now, I mean, at least, with the Xbox fans, this was new. This was like fresh. Nothing like this had ever been done before. So it was hard to accept. But these guys have seen it happen in 4K in real time. And instead of saying, hey, we're seeing the writing on the wall, this is like too much of a one-to-one replica of what we're seeing. They're turning around and doing exactly the same thing. And then they get annoyed that people laugh at them. Well, no, don't get annoyed. You saw what was happening. You, of all people, should just turn around and go, well, that's it. It's done. But instead, they're going to make you believe that Hiroki Totoki here is completely profit-driven, by the way. Literally a profit-driven guy. And apparently he's a bad businessman for being profit-driven. Hate to see some of these people actually run a business, by the way, if they don't care about profits. Because, yeah, I've got an invisible bridge to sell you, buddy. He can do an unlimited invisible toll charges as well. But this guy is completely profit-driven, and you think he's going to hire a 400k person and then say, right, everything is off limits except for this one game that's 90% going to get cancelled. So you're just going to sit there playing on your Tamagotchi. It's delusional. It's wayward thinking. And, it's crazy that they are still holding on to some semblance of hope. And I do believe that either Horizon or Spider-Man is going to be the first games coming over, because those two engines are already on Xbox. I mean, all of them are open source PC, but those two at least have the engine fully done, so they don't have to get that engine over to Xbox.
Yeah,
it's already working. It's already done. They just need to take that. They just need to port it over. It's going to be much more simpler than porting over another game that uses a completely different engine.
Yeah, I mean, again, great points all around. Fuzzy, any additional context for the conversation? By the way, we have almost 1,100 people watching live. That is absolutely insane. Of course, that is our one Twitch viewer. Hello, Twitch viewer. Thanks so much for checking us out. Mostly on X, which is great. And of course, the other 400 plus are from YouTube. Folks, if you're at the YouTube site and you're not already subscribed, Mrs. Boom and I are politely, slowly, mom and pop way getting to 16.1K. We'd love to hit 17K. I don't know if we get it this year or something we hit next year, but you can help us get there by simply subscribing. But Fuzzy, before I get to the super chats, any additional context, sir?
Oh, one thing I do want to say real quick. Do UK now, Broke Boy Insider. I tried not to take your points only because, like, as I read through the chat, it's like if I have something I was going to say and you say it, I'm like, all right, I'll avoid it. No, but yeah, this is a time overall where we need to look at gaming a little bit differently. Right now, Nintendo's going to skip to their own beat kind of thing, with PlayStation going a similar route as far as third party. And I wouldn't say hardware is going to be a non-starter type of thing down the road at this point. I still think we'll have hardware at least 2 more generations, but we may also have third-party hardware. I don't know if Sony will do the third-party, but I'm pretty sure Xbox will probably do a third-party hardware type of deal. Mm-hmm. And I think with that being said, we can now find a way to blur the lines between PC and console, which I know can be scary for some, but that also possibly leads to more features and more advancements as far as things like Quick Resume, which I know a lot of people were like, oh, it's just buzzwords, whatever. Quick Resume is a nice added feature that you didn't know you needed until you don't have access to it, kind of thing.
I agree. Yep.
So we might see some more things along these lines. So as these companies focus less on the exclusivity aspect and they can focus on the games, maybe focus on the budget so they can keep things reasonable so they don't have to go through this, spin up the studio, add more contractors and then lay everybody off after the game releases kind of thing. Maybe they can, come to a ground level where they can keep a standard amount of staff, throughout the year type of deal and focus on the games being playable, good, without having to do a day one patch kind of thing. But yeah, I think this is a great thing moving forward for gamers as a whole. Things are expensive these days. And yes, I know it's a hobby. Hobbies can be expensive, but if you can make it so the hobby is less expensive and less volatile for those working within that space, then I think we can enjoy the benefits of that as gamers as a whole. So, I'm looking forward to the games that come over to Xbox, just like I'll look forward to a lot of the Xbox games going over to PlayStation, or whichever one of them puts their games on PC, which I'm kind of blurring the lines already with my Steam Deck and probably picking up the Xbox Ally. But yeah, this is a great time as a gamer. If you could only, dish out money for one platform, and now you'll have access to other titles within other platforms, I can't fault that. I can't look at that as a bad thing, especially when the cost of living seems to be going up on the daily. I think that's a good thing at this point. It means we can save some money here and there and focus on things that you may consider more important, or things that are more of a necessity, as opposed to, owning all the boxes and all the games 7 times on each of them, except for Grand Theft Auto 6, which we'll probably all buy 4 or 5 times. But, that aside, yeah, this I don't know. At first I was not really feeling this, but then again,
none of us were. None of the OGs were cool with, putting again, God of War on Xbox sounds absurd.
Yeah.
Gears of War on PlayStation sounds absurd. Guess what? It's happening.
Yeah. And the great thing is, even while having these, multiple platforms like a lot of us here do, it gives you a lot more options. Like, there are certain games that I might buy specifically on PC because of the mods. And that's like the biggest thing, where, if you want to mod the characters or mod the environment or mod the vehicles or weapons, buy it on PC. If you just want the, traditional PlayStation experience for one of their titles, buy it on PlayStation. If you want the Xbox experience, and for me, the biggest thing for Xbox has always been my friends list, where everybody uses, headsets and there's communication, whether it's game related or just BSing in the background. That's what I'll buy a lot of my games. So this is a great thing moving forward. I like I said earlier, start focusing on those cross-play games and bring your console war, having self to the front lines at that point and have at it. That's all.
No, great points, gentlemen. Great show. 90 minutes. Fantastic chat. Everyone was pretty gracious with one another. And again, we don't always have to agree. All right, you can have your opinion and still hang out in the chat with us. But I think everyone was really, really good with one another, as this chat usually is. This chat's one of the best in the business for sure. Let me just catch up on these super chats, and we'll get you fine folks to get out there to finish off your Monday. We have Mac22 in the chat, drops a very generous $2 super chat and says TTS boom, which I normally don't like to do. I don't like to get in my feelings like that because it's just games. But look, when you get clipped on a regular basis, and some people say some egregious things, nothing really bothers me. I'm being completely fair. I could care less. I'm going to be 55 years old. There is nothing anyone on this planet can say to me that's going to make me run and hide. These things are happening, but you know what? People are just toxic MFers. That's what they are. And this is their life. And to me, that's very sad. But thank you so much for the generosity. Brett Bingham drops a very generous $5 super chat. Brett goes on to say, are we in the central nervous system of Sony ponies? Because we are about to be in their feelings. LMO. Yeah, I mean, there are people in their feelings right now. Really, really worked up. I've seen some tweets, and again, we don't do the name thing here. People I don't know if it was fake. Somebody had put a recording that they literally were crying over this. I hope it's fake. It can't be real. But then again, it could be real too. I don't know. It's just games, ladies and gentlemen. It's fine. It's fine. It is absolutely fine. Roshan Impenger drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, Diablo 4 already did what Spider-Man is going to do. They have effectively split each act into DLC, and it has unfortunately worked out financially. Yeah, see, I have it. I never played it. I know that they were doing some different things. A lot of community didn't like it, but yeah, Spider-Man 3 has been rumored. Again, this came the way of the leak, so Fuzzy was right, where it is going to be $400 million to make, and in order for them to get their return on investment, they're considering splitting it into 3 games. which I don't know how that's going to work out because at $70 or $80 per game, yikes, that sucks. But we'll see. We will certainly see. Sith Lord have been a channel member for 39 months. Sith Lord, salute to you, kind sir. Thank you so much for the generosity. He says, do you think Helldivers is having a great pre-order on Xbox and thought other games might do on Xbox as well? Look, these decisions are made months in advance. I'd say even much as 6 months in advance. You got to remember, in January, when I had that podcast that people clipped and went like bananas on me for saying this, it's because I was told verbatim that this was happening. And I put it up as a maybe, but I knew that they were working on it. And that was in January of 2025. Well, it was announced, last week, the week before? So these decisions are not just, look, I don't think Forza Horizon 5 solely is the reason why you're getting games from PlayStation ported to Xbox. I don't think that's the case. I think everything that they have done so far with some of their releases, like Indiana Jones and some of the other games that charted really well on PlayStation's own network and own store, I think those are the reasons why you're seeing Sony. Because like I said, the shareholders are looking at this and saying, how come we're not doing that? I'm sure that's what it is. Dragon Wolf, who's been a channel member for 18 months. Glad to see you here, Dragon Wolf. And thank you for the consistent generosity. Mrs. Boom and I truly appreciate it. He says, if Sony stays silent on this, that will speak volumes. Well, they have not said anything since Friday. There's been no official Herman Holtz, hey, community, don't worry, it's just 4 games. I hope he says that. I hope he says it's just the 4 games, because then I'm going to have a laugh riot attack live on the air. Will the Broke Boy Insider says this after dropping a $5 super chat. Hire the guy. He says Uncharted to Xbox. PlayStation says no. Horizon Zero Dawn. PS says no. God of War. PS says no. Okay, Spider-Man. PS says PlayStation says no. Then why the hell am I here? And ultimately, again, it's a position that's paying nearly $400,000 a year. You don't hire someone in management with that kind of attached salary if they're not expected to make big decisions regarding first party. And these decisions are not that big of a deal. Like I said, you asked me this 2 years ago, I'd have been like, you are freaking crazy. Xbox can put all these games on there. And they did it. And I had a problem with it, like many OGs. And you know what we've all come to do? Just accept it. Right? Like Macho Man, you may not like it, but you got to accept it. Right? That's what it is. That's going to happen with PlayStation gamers as well. Now, I don't know about any PlayStation gamers leaving the brand to go to Nintendo, but you never know. It's crazy. The legend underscore, the underscore legend 350. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, and thank you for the generosity. He drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, glad Xbox and PlayStation third-party console war rest in peace. Yeah, I think the console war is dead. It really is. It is a content war. We're going to get into more why Xbox is better positioned than anybody right now, and we'll break that down on tomorrow's Xbox Factor podcast at noon. Amish AI drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, Foam Stars are still a PlayStation exclusive. You are correct. So was the racing one that was like Fortnite. What the heck was it?
Destruction All Stars.
Yeah, there you go. Destruction.
Game of the
which,
year.
by the way, I actually played that. It was actually a pretty good game. It's just it was like Twisted Metal meets Fortnite. It wasn't terrible, but
Yeah, when I got a chicken dinner in my second match, I gave up.
Oh, well, there you go. Silly Mikey drops a very generous $7 Canadian. So thank you, Silly Mikey, for the generosity. He says pre-orders for Helldivers on Xbox must be real good. Look, I have a strong suspicion that if the numbers for PlayStation 5 are only 2.2 million and it hasn't seen any additional sales, I honestly think that Xbox gamers are going to buy more than that. I think at least 3 million sales for that. It's an excellent game. It really is. And the fact that it's coming to Xbox, and if they really want to make money, all they got to do is sell some skins with ODST or Halo skins, they're getting my money. It wouldn't even be a thought. I'd take my money, please. So hopefully they do that, because that would be dope. But I think it's going to sell. I think it's going to sell really well on Xbox. We also have Do UK Now. The Broke Boy Insider drops an additional $2 super chat and says, actually, the position is 3 hires. Remember, 2 report to that person. That's very interesting. I don't know if they're all near $400,000. I don't know if those positions are lesser or more, but that's a great point. So they have 3 people that have to pay for this. They're not going to sit on their hands, folks. They're just not. The Gamers DMZ in the chat drops a very generous $10 super chat. The Gamers DMC goes on to say, I own a PlayStation 5 and buy again if Spider-Man 2018, Days Gone, and The Last of Us come to Xbox. Yeah, so but I own all those games. They're literally in here in the steelbook cases. I have the physical copies. Some of them I have digital, but I have the steelbooks on every one of those games, and I would spend the money on these games. Something that a PlayStation player probably wouldn't do when something like Gears of War went over. Something like Forza wouldn't go. They talk shit, but they won't actually buy the game. And you know why? Because they don't even buy their own PlayStation first-party games. I wonder why that is. Because they play Twitter and socials more than they actually play games, which is sad. And you know that they do that because their trophies are hidden. My trophies you can find easily. Just go look it up. Everything's available for you to check, see what I played. We have Do UK Now. The Broke Boy Insider drops an additional $2 super chats. He goes on to say in the first one, damn it, Chaos, your first time here and you take my stuff.
Wait, what did I take?
No, that's okay. You know what? People for the life of poor Will, the Broke Boy Insider, his points get stolen almost by everyone. So welcome to the club. Congratulations, sir. You stole his point. I love it. Okay, so I promise from now on, when I see it, I'll stop the show. Will says, from now on, boom, read my super chats, but when I post them, all right, I will promise I will attempt to make sure that I do read them before someone steals your points, because this poor man he's been on the show before. Smart dude, but his points are always getting taken. Apologies for that. Game Shark, who's been a channel member for 10 months, goes on to say, Ponybots, think before you jump. Hashtag don't be Tim Dog. Hashtag don't be crap gamer. Hashtag don't be D-Batch. Stop crying about Xbox. You're making a fool of yourself. Yeah, I don't follow those guys. I don't know what they say. I know that they've been fighting with the community in a big way. I don't like that engagement, man. I'm a unicorns and rainbow kind of a guy, man. I really am. I like everybody just being friends. Hell, I don't even really curse. You got a big one today because I was in my feelings, but I normally don't even curse. So yeah, I don't like that. But you know, people are gonna be people, man. That's just what it is. Lastly, Gamer by Choice. Wow, see, this is crazy. Gamer by Choice has been a channel member for as long as the channel's been around. 70 months, dude. That is insane generosity. Mrs. Boom and I truly appreciate it. He says gaming is changing, and we just need to deal with that. I have been gaming since the late 70s, me as well, brother, and I look forward to all games going everywhere to have exclusive exclusive suck to me. Yeah, I mean, you're not the only one that said that. I mean, look, we're going to come to a point where consoles, ladies and gentlemen, and even for someone like me who's a diehard, right? Consoles are going to be released, and consoles in the next generation could be upwards of $800. Now, that's not so much Nintendo. Nintendo's Switch 2 is going to be around for at least another 5 or 7 years. So I'm not worried about the Switch, right? Switch is going to be the Switch. But both Sony and Xbox, their next consoles are going to be super expensive. I mean, the PlayStation 5 Pro right now, at its cheapest, not counting sales, is $700 for just the digital version. If you need the disc drive, or you want the disc drive and you want to stand, it's upwards of $800. There's going to come a point where folks like me, like you, like people on this chat are not going to actually be able to afford all of these consoles or want to spend that money. So how does that get fixed? Games go to your console of choice. If you're an Xbox guy or gal, you'll play PlayStation games and buy them the same as a PlayStation gamer, but you'll buy them for your favorite platform. And that goes for Sony too. There is going to come a point, I think Xbox is going to probably do it first, where even some of their first party bangers may be day and date. You know, could that be Fable? Could that be the next Forza Horizon? I don't know. We'll find out. But there's going to come a point where they're not going to want to leave money on the table, ladies and gentlemen. And that's ultimately, again, it's no longer the console war. It's the content war. We also had, two more super chats popping. Hey, Web Dave, who I hung out with last night on the show, drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, boom, thanks for joining Gamers Council, TTS, hashtag no PS6, with a laughing emoji. Yeah, it was great to hang out with you and Hargeet as well. Thank you for the invite, as always, Dave. Dave Reezy, salute to you, kind sir. Thanks so much for being here. Dave Reezy drops a very generous $2 super chat. And Dave goes on to say, I have a point Will didn't make. PS is dead. I mean, that's what they said about Xbox when they went third party. It's dead. And, well, I'm not going to say that because that's just being silly. But, yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, this is what they ran with, right? And I didn't mention him because I'm going to talk about it tomorrow. But even Jez Corden put a rebuttal out there about he was wrong. Because, you know, he was very against the multi-platform strategy because he's an OG also. And he thought for sure that it was going to cause people to leave the brand. And some people did. Sure, he was right about that. But ultimately, he did say that it was the right move. And I think what convinced him is what Sony is doing ultimately. So listen, it's a winner-winner chicken dinner for everybody. When every game is everywhere. Again, I would have not signed off on this 2 years ago. I've come to just accept what the reality of gaming is today. But Chaos Lounge, brother, thank you so much for hanging out with us. It was great to see you here. You're definitely going to get a key to the front door. We got to bring you back. But first, we got to sell your brand. Tell us about your YouTube channel. Tell us about where can people find you on the socials. Drop the link in the chat if you can. And, of course, we're going to add that to the show notes. So if people want to subscribe to the Chaos Lounge YouTube channel, follow him on the socials. All of his info will be click, and you're there. Sell the brand, brother.
I'm basically covering video games in general, but I'm primarily focused more on Xbox because I'm an Xbox fan, so that's no surprise. I also stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays. My channel is, as per the link, youtube.com/Chaos Lounge. I basically cover all sorts of gaming news, and I try to cover some previews and reviews and trailers and stuff like that. So yeah, it's generally a good time with the streams, and the videos do come thick and fast. So hopefully you'll enjoy it if you pop around to see it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We definitely got to get you back on here. Great. Again, more than anything, we're so glad that your health is back to 100%, and we're happy to have you here. This was a long time coming. We certainly not going to be your last time joining us on this program or many of the other programs that I have, whatever suits your schedule the best. And of course, Fuzzy Belvedere, let's sell the brand, brother. Of course, your YouTube channel, which you kind of put on the side for a bit, is the best place for anything and everything in the racing genre. But we're here to promote the Mrs. YouTube channel, Fright Night with Ferocious Feast, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, every Friday evening. And folks, you know what? If you like horror, whether it be B, D, or even Z horror, you can find them talking about something. And, well, tell us about it, brother. Where can people subscribe to your YouTube channels? And more importantly, follow you guys on social media.
Oh, just want to start off by saying it was awesome being on here. Great we had Chaos Lounge with us today. Awesome thoughts and love your insight on the industry. Look forward to doing more podcasts with you. And Boom, always love doing this. Sorry I missed Friday, but yeah, this was a fun topic today, and it's going to continue. And keep those Sony ponies out there on watch. Just make sure they're okay. Check in on them every so often.
Pop in, say hello, lock all the windows, hide all the knives, the sharp objects. You know how to watch out for them. There you go.
No, but for those that want to hear my rambles and rants on anything gaming related, you can pretty much find me on social media. Just do a search for Fuzzy Belvedere. You'll be able to find me. Put my link for my YouTube channel as well as my wife's YouTube channel, Fright Night with Ferocious Fee, in the chat. Every Friday evening at 6 p.m., we review a movie. Not sure what this Friday's is. I forget the title, but I know for last Friday, we did a review of The Clove Hitch Killer. A nice psychological, horror film. No real blood and gore, but the psychological aspect, definitely they nailed it in that one. So if you haven't seen it, check out one of the older episodes, or just come hang out with us. We'll talk about horror movies. We'll talk about some of the movies we might either be in or working on, as well as just anything relating between horror video games and horror movies, or some side topics on occasion. So it's always a good time in the chat. So come hang out with us Friday evening, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Once again, the link for Fright Night with Ferocious Fee is in the chat. And for everybody out there, enjoy your games. Try not to let that backlog overwhelm you. I know Game Pass is hitting on all cylinders, and it's making the backlog struggle really difficult. So just continue playing games, have fun out there, and hope to see you guys this Friday for Breakfast with Boom, 10 a.m. right here, right now, or right here on Friday. See you then.
Well, thank you so much for joining. Late breaking news, folks. Sony has filed a lawsuit against Tencent for allegedly ripping off Horizon Zero Dawn with their own game called Light of Motram. And it looks like a one-to-one ripoff. Like it's so one-to-one, I can't even tell which is one and which the other.
That was quite bad.
So they're going to be suing them, and expect Herman Holtz, which that's obviously we know his connection to it. That could be one of the first ones that drop. I loved Zero Dawn. Absolutely adored Aloy as a character. Did not like the second one. I don't know what it was about Forbidden West that just did not click with me. I would buy that again. I would play through that again on Xbox. I championed that game so hard when I used to be on other podcasts, and I would get lambasted for it. I really enjoyed Horizon Zero Dawn, and I would gladly play through that again. And it was ported over by, I believe, Nixxes might have helped with that port as well. So again, it would be no big deal. But ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us here. Big thank you to Chaos Lounge and Fuzzy Belvedere. A big thank you to you, kind audience, because we wouldn't have a show if you did not tune in. And we had over 1,100 people watching live, which is a really big deal for a channel of our size. And of course, Mrs. Boom and I are always going to be grateful. We take nothing for granted. A big thank you to all of these super chats, gifted subs, and channel member chats that continuously come in. Mrs. Boom again and I are incredibly grateful for the support, because nothing is guaranteed. And of course, I'm going to close out the show with something that's incredibly important to me. Hopefully one day, ladies and gentlemen, will be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of the Xbox Lunch Break Special.